Hello and welcome to another uncertified episode of Certified Forgotten. It is me, one half of your Matts, Matt Donato. Once again, Matt Monogolless, as he is finally at the end of his moving journey. We all wish Matt the best. He's made it to Pennsylvania and he will be back soon. And thank you for staying with us as well. I know we haven't had a guest episode this month, but out of fairness to Mr. Monogle, I like to keep him for those episodes. But yeah, I still want to talk about movies, and I want to talk about movies with my friends. And if that's not Monocle, it's my other super smart friends I like to bring in to be the Monocle. And today we have another fantastic Monocle fill-in. And when I say that, she is our own person. We love BJ. Thank you very much, BJ, for coming in and kicking ass and talking. I know what you did last summer with me today.
I'm so excited to be here because I know in my heart of hearts that I have a wildly different take on these movies, especially this new one that than you do, and I'm assuming than Monocle will.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited it's you because we did text briefly after the last screening we saw of I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025. And immediately I was like, oh, that's the conversation I want to have. There was nobody else. It was just you. And I was
Aw.
like, thank God that you were able to do it. Also, you're just you, so I wanted you on anyway. But no, this conversation would be good because I will say I watched every single I Know What You Did, including the fucking 2026 direct to DVD disaster that
Oh, the
maybe we'll
the
talk
DT
about.
the DT Okay, all I will say is, like, it's DTV. They decided that the fisherman was suddenly, like, a ghost demon. Fuck that movie. It's bad. We don't need to talk about it. Get it out of here.
Okay, good. All right, good. No, I'll always Know What You Did Last Summer is off the table because I agree. Fuck that movie. It takes some swings. I get it, and I defend a lot of those 2000s DTV movies. I love my trash. I love my garbage, but this was garbage on a level that even I couldn't handle. I gave it like a 1 star. I was like, no, no, thank you.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough pumpkins. I'm not a fan of that one. I'm also somebody who defends a lot of hot ass messes, and I just can't with that one.
I mean, the podcast alone, we've covered Hellraiser, Hellworld. We've covered a few. We've covered some franchise sequels there, thanks to Rosie and other brilliant guests. But no, today we're talking about a new movie, and we're talking about the new I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I think just for me to put it out there, I Know What You Did Last Summer has never been one of my franchises,
Mhm.
whether that is as a mystery, as a quote unquote Scream knockoff that I'm sure some people call it. But no matter how you kind of look at it, I don't know. I do understand its silliness. And while I am a silly goose when it comes to horror, I like a little bit of comedy and I like a little bit of fuck it all kind of chaos. But I don't know. It just never stuck with me over the years. I've tried watching the first one a few times and I think it's fine, and the rest are, what they are. So
Mhm.
that is where I'm approaching this from. And you said already, you have a very different take than I do on the franchise. So like,
Mhm.
where is I Know What You Did Last Summer in your pantheon of horror franchises?
I have a weird fascination specifically with the first movie because I think that it is such a wild look at a movie that Kevin Williamson wrote before Scream, that they looked at the script and went, nah, and threw it away. But then his name and him making a slasher suddenly is the most important thing in town. And then they dig it out of the garbage. It really is that fuck this. Oh, wait, I need this meme, like in action. And so to see that movie rushed into production, and the fact that even with a rush production, they managed to strike lightning with one of the most like incredible ensemble cast that you're going to get in a movie like this, where every single person in this is someone that you know their name, you know their actor name, you know their character name. Like that does not happen very often. The fact that it is also based on a middle school book that is about like examining grief but then turns into like an urban legend slasher, weirdly hilarious. The movie is also very unintentionally funny because like Kevin Williamson is a very smart writer. There are a couple lines, especially like Helen Shivers lines, that are legitimately like, oh, she's really funny. But there's a lot of stuff in the movie that is not trying to be funny. And so many slashers are trying to wink at the camera. And I Know What You Did Last Summer just is incidentally funny. And that is something that I appreciate. And then that's why I'm not as big of a fan as I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, because I think it becomes a little bit more aware at that point. I do think that Carla, the character played by Brandy, is one of the best characters in the slasher like canon that we have, and I'm so sad that she's kind of saddled with that piece of shit movie. But even in that movie there's like funny shit that's like The fact that one of the villains is canonically named, I put this on Blue Sky the other day, but canonically his name is Will Willis, and his like fake name is is
Ben's
Will
son.
Will Benson, Ben's son. Like, I'm sorry, that shit is funny to me. I love stuff like that. And so I have an affinity for it. I also just very much have an affinity for the original for a lot of like stupid, superficial reasons. Helen Shivers being a beauty queen, I love the fact that this is one of the few movies that exists where there's an actual baton twirler that's doing baton in this movie. I point it out every single time. I love that there's a fucking Where's Waldo scene with people in slickers. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's chaos. And it makes me laugh and it makes me very happy. And I liked showing this movie to people because you get the mystery. You are so focused on trying to figure out the plot and figure out who could have done this. And then, of course, the person that it's revealed to be is like, oh, it's this person that only makes sense if I dump exposition on you. I think it's funny. I like it. I can't help it. I'm an honest lady. I like what I like.
And it's important, the context you brought up at the beginning to say, Kevin Williamson wrote this before Scream, and there was a reason it was passed on. And you can kind of see that reason because without Scream spearheading the entire horror genre at that time and turning it into the slasher renaissance that it was for a little
Mhm.
bit, and especially the teen slasher renaissance, we never would have had this movie. And I get that seeing so much of it, but that kind of chaos is endearing. I agree. That's what gets me through. I know you did last summer, but it's so funny to look at it and be like, oh yeah, he really figured out kind of all the little issues maybe or the things that were passed
Mhm.
on in that script. And he really like figured that out and Scream. And then to go backwards almost, it's like, that's an interesting way to sit because
Yeah, yeah, I think it's fascinating, and there's also a couple of things in this movie that I'm always gonna go to bat for because we straight up just don't see them in a lot of slashers. The fact that this is kind of a poor community in the original one, which I also like. I have so many fascinating feelings about what the Legacy sequel does with that. But you have like working class fishermen, which is very different from like the very wealthy teens that we normally see in slashers or even just suburban teens. We have rich characters in this movie, but by and large, Southport is working class people. And there's a lot of pent up anger from the working class. And then you also just get these like beautiful, sweeping shots of just water and hills and nature. And again, like it's not just, these Anywhere USA houses. It knows that there is a distinct identity to the location and it plays into that, which I think is very, very interesting. The soundtrack, I think, rips. I think Anne Hesh being weird with a chicken is awesome. Like there are these little things that just you don't have in a lot of other slashers that it helps me look past the obvious glaring problems that exist in this movie. Why is Helen Shivers running in one direction and then for no reason turning around and running exactly back to where she came to get killed? Like, let's be so fucking for real. We know she's smarter than that. That is, plot plot device happening to make the movie go along. But I don't know. I have an affinity for it, and that got a lot of mileage for me out of the Legacy sequel.
so I was gonna say let's pivot then to the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, the 2005 version. We're gonna leave John Hawkes and Jack Black in the past and move on to the new cast. But I mean, like, I'm gonna start really quickly here because I know we're definitely on opposite sides. I will not say I hate this movie. I don't think it's inherently terrible, let's say, or anything like that. But to me, it feels like it's chasing the high of Scream 2022, where they want to do all the nostalgia bait, but they want to comment on the community that has been built since then. They want to comment on the meta nature of the series they are in. They want to do all this, hey, let's look back at the past, but also evolve for the future. And this is like the Gen Z version. Let's get the best of both worlds and really throw everything together with old cast, new cast. And to me, it's like Scream could do that because it had such rich lore and it had so much behind it and there was so much to mine. Where I Know What You Did Last Summer has a much smaller pool for all that. So it doesn't feel like there's that grand reason to kind of do all this. To me, there wasn't the big excitement when we had the old cast coming back. And I frankly like didn't love the new cast 100%. So I was struggling with this new version of I Know What You Did Last Summer that is inherently silly as well. I do think it is funny. I think there are elements in that way that do save a lot of the scenes. But overall, I think the messiness of the movie, where it is endearing and it was once endearing in the 90s, is no longer endearing. And they had to figure out maybe a little better way to contain that. And I also feel like there's studio tampering. We know there were characters that were completely cut out, like
Mhm.
actors were in this movie that aren't anymore. So I just have this feeling that the whole third act, and we'll do spoilers maybe for 5 minutes at the end, but we won't spoil yet. But I don't know. It really fell apart for me in that third act. So it's I think if you're a super fan, in my opinion, you'll be fine. But for everyone else, like this isn't the movie that's going to bring you into I Know What You Did Last Summer. But now it's your turn. I want to hear you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
with your side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so even in my review, I even said like as a slasher movie, like yeah, it's fine. But as an I Know What You Did Last Summer installment, like this is exactly what it should be. Because even you're so right about the lore, like it doesn't have the rich lore that something like Scream does. And so because of that, it feels like this movie for me, like this is the funhouse mirror, and each movie is like the weird reflection of the other because these characters are weird versions of each other set in different time periods, and a lot of their sensibilities change because they're in different time periods. But like to me that opens up a very interesting conversation to have about nostalgia, about just sort of like giving people the exact same thing in a new coat of paint, and how that doesn't work and the ways that it can work and the ways that like it gets very frustrating because one of the characters in this new one, Milo, who is sort of playing the de facto Freddie Prinze Jr. character, I at first I was like, God, it's so weird. Like he doesn't really do anything in this, and we don't know all that much about him. And I was like, wait, Ray is gone for like 80% of the original I Know What You Did Last Summer. So nope, that's right. He's just playing that role, which is we know shit all about him. Um Obviously, like it has, you know, the hindsight of Helen Shivers is everybody's favorite character. So that it's like, all right, we're gonna give Madeline Klein's Danica a lot more screen time, a lot more one-liners, like because we know that's what people want. And I think that that's a really interesting thing to do. I think it's real. I think that like Jennifer Caton Robinson really loves teen movies from the 90s. It's extremely evident in her movie Do Revenge, which is a 90s teen strangers on a train through the lens of Clueless and a bunch of other like 90s teen movies. So she has a reverence for this. And I also think that she is a little bit of an irony pilled millennial, the way that I definitely am. And the fact that she's not embarrassed of that and she's like, fuck it, if you think this is cringe, this is what my movie's going to be. I have a lot of respect for that. Um and this movie, like, is it a good movie? No, it doesn't have the beautiful sweeping cinematography of the original that I wish that it had. I don't think that the costuming is nearly as memorable as the original one is. I think some of the action scenes and kill scenes have that weird glossy like editing and sheen that a lot of like modern studio horror movies have, but I don't fault the movie for that. That's just what studios expect at this point. So I focus more so on story and character for this movie, and with that I have a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and I think that it redid a bunch of like weird callbacks to the first one in ways that I didn't feel were as obvious as some of our other legacy sequels, like Scream, with the exception of like What Are You Waiting For? But like, please, let's be for real. Like, it has to be over the top. If it's not, what are we even doing here? Um, but yeah, it takes some weird swings that I still am like, that's an interesting choice to make, but so does the original one because the original swing is like the killer is this man you've never heard of. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, at least this time it like was somebody we had met before 5 minutes before.
Well, I was gonna say I do respect the "fuck your nostalgia" of the new movie. It literally is like one of the lines said by a character. They call outright that like nostalgia's dumb. Fuck all this shit.
Oh yeah, I think it's the Julie James character is like, congratulations, it's 1997 again, and I'm like, fuck yeah, Julie, get it.
But there's the fuck your nostalgia, but there is also the we're gonna give the fans what they want. I mean, Ray's line alone, where he gets really serious, is like, "Don't go to the Bahamas." Like, it's the greatest line
Yes,
delivery of the
it's
entire movie.
so funny.
So it knows what it's doing in those moments. But for me, it's almost like the narrative choppiness and talking about the kill scenes. I know what you did last summer isn't about the body count. It's about
No.
what's going on. And when you
Mhm,
rewatch the first movie, how many people died? There's really only two main characters who are slain. Johnny Galecki obviously is in there as
mhm,
well, but it's about the chase. It's about the mystery more than anything. And the sequel changes that. It turns into straightforward slasher territory. So we've
mhm,
already had kind of both entries in the franchise because again, we're ignoring the third. And this remake, sorry, this reboot quill, whatever we're calling it feels like it's stuck between trying to give us these gruesome slasher moments, which it does in a few points. We get some really bloody kills, but it's always after the effect. Like, we don't
mhm,
see it happen all the time. We see the posed body, whether it's like a fishing trophy hanging on the dock, which is a great visual,
mhm,
or it's somebody sitting on, I won't say their profession because that gives away if they die or not, but
mhm,
somebody in their profession with a knife or a sword, whatever, through them. But then there are these other scenes where it just doesn't line up. Like to me, a lot of the movie logic is you just have to roll with it, that it goes with the messiness we talked about, the chaos, the silliness. But there are like multiple characters who are clearly stabbed right out of frame by the hook, but then they're shown and like their clothes aren't pierced. They're not bleeding from the area where they were
mhm,
stabbed and all this stuff. So it just feels like there's a lot of cutting and pasting of things that maybe they refilmed some of it and then maybe they just had to roll with it after that. And the linear nature of it, like it feels like a movie of highlight scenes versus something continuous and something that is like connected. And I think again, like that's what I struggled with for me. If I'm approaching it not as a super fan, I'm approaching it as, all right, what are you going to give me that's different? How are you going to do this? That connectivity is so important, and I felt like it was lacking. And even what you said, like the working class nature of the first movie is really fun to be in, like for a slasher film, where this is the Nantucket Hamptons ass fucking rich version of it. And it's not as enjoyable for that reason. But I do want to say my two favorite characters are Madeline Klein's Danica that you mentioned already. She is
mhm,
playing the Helen Shivers Gen Z version so well. Just
mhm,
everything about like, I don't drink because it's puff. It makes me puffy, or like all those like little comments.
mhm.
They really work. Like I was laughing at those. And also Tyreek Withers, who's playing Teddy, the nepo baby realtor kid who is an asshole. Like that's his whole thing. But he's this sweet, endearing asshole who knows who he is. And I found his whole general nature of being in a slasher movie and understanding he is and just being like, fuck this, what are we doing, let's just get out
Mhm.
of here stuff. I found them really comical, where I just found other characters, I just to be one note. I didn't feel that much from the other gang, let's say the remaining characters in the entire group, and even the legacy characters that come back. I didn't feel that spark this time. So that's where I kind of again like felt like a little bit of a downturn.
Yeah, I think that's fair, honestly. For me, like I was gonna be hype as shit for our legacy characters no matter what because I have such an affinity for them. But if you don't have that affinity, then of course, like this is not gonna hit for you. And that's why I think that this is when it comes to like the juggling between like the nostalgia versus like trying to make a new thing for Gen Z, I do think that's the first Scream, like Scream 5. Like I'm calling it Scream 5. Like calling it Scream on it's so stupid. Fucking stupid. Fuck your SEO. Scream 5 I think was also saddled with that burden where you have to give something that feels like it is connecting to what it was before if it's not just a straight up reboot. I don't know if you watched the I Know What You Did Last Summer series they did on Prime Video. They take there's a cult, there are twins, like there's a lot of like really wild shit. It's also set in Hawaii. It's like it's very different. And people hated it, like violently hated it. They're like, this is not I Know What You Did Last Summer. And so I think that is a knowledge that the filmmakers are having to work with of like, okay, we have to do something that is connected to the original because if we're not, like, it's going to be rejected. We already tried to do like full on reboot and people did not like it. And so when you are juggling that burden, like that's hard. Like that is an impossible ask for anybody. And so for that, I give a lot of these filmmakers a little bit of grace. But to your point about there being like weird editing and like continuity errors, that to me does feel like studio meddling. And what's interesting to me is that this franchise is a franchise that has never not been meddled with by the studios in one way or the other. With the original film, it's fuck it, we ball, make this movie with the script that we already thought was garbage. We need to get it out as soon as possible. Oh my god, this made fuck you money. Let's rush another sequel into production as soon as possible. Like we don't have time to waste. Let's just do it. And then you have this one, which is clearly hacked to bits in some parts. And so that also makes it like a very interesting franchise for me because like horror movies and especially franchise horror movies are not given the luxury of something like auteur theory, you know? Like I'm going to be infinitely more harsh for like a Wes Anderson movie or a Tarantino or an Ari Aster than I will ever be to a movie like this because I know there's a lot of decisions being made that the creative team has no say in whatsoever. And so I think that primes me to always be looking for the positives and like I there's a lot of stuff I can just wave my hand away at when it comes to a movie like this. And I know that that makes me like an easy critic or a friendly or whatever people want to call me. And that's fine. I know that about myself. And I also kind of don't give a shit because there are things that this movie does that I don't want to say because it gets into spoiler territory that I do think are really interesting in terms of how trauma does completely change people. And it's one of the few horror movies, especially legacy horror movies, where all of them have been about trauma and how the trauma of years and blah, blah, blah. And it actually does something with that idea instead of just saying, oh, I have trauma. And it's like, okay, how has that changed you? Because your character seems exactly the fucking same as they were 30 years ago, save for Laurie Strode in one installment, and then she immediately abandons that side of her personality. Sure, okay. This movie actually shows two people who experienced trauma and processed it completely differently because that's what trauma is. It's how you respond to it, and they responded to it in wildly different directions. And I think that that's interesting. I think that that is a very cool thing. Would I have liked more? Of course, obviously. But also, this movie is dealing with a lot of things. It's juggling a lot of characters. It's also the problem the first one has. There's too many fucking people that we have to care about versus like a final girl and friends. Like these tend to be ensemble pieces.
Yeah, and it's a really good point to say that this movie has always been marred by, or sorry, this franchise has always been marred by studio pickups, whatever you want to call it. Like the studio has been heavily involved, and it hasn't been an auteur-driven, let's say, Scream. Like Scream is Anderson and Williamson for as long as it could be just them, and obviously things changed because they had to. But the way I kind of wrote about it in my review, it was I'll go back to say what I said before. Like this wants to be Scream 5 so desperately, but it's almost like act like you've been there. But the thing is, I Know What You Did Last Summer has never been there. It's never been on Scream's level. It's always been trying to chase it. And that is just a byproduct of when you have something successful in the horror genre, and the horror genre is maybe a little stale at the moment. Every studio is going to want their Scream. Every studio is going to want their
Mhm.
thing. So it was always inevitable that this follow up, like this was one of the very first to follow right behind Scream. And as much as it's like, act like you've been there, but you never have been, so you're just faking it. I- There, that is an endearing quality because like it still was keeping up in the 90s. I mean, its
Mhm.
legacy is nothing like Scream, obviously, as you just said. Like the Scream television series alone had 3 seasons, where the I Know What You Did Last Summer TV series did exactly what you said it did.
Yep.
Had a great haunted house I went to. But I mean, we're at the 25-minute mark, and we usually keep these about 30 minutes. But I
Mhm.
do want to do a little spoiler talk because
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much of what is deep in my commentary is tied to that third act. So what I will say is, if you're listening to this and you have not seen the movie yet, we're gonna go for another 5. If we go 10 minutes, we'll maybe it's a 35-minute episode. I want to talk spoilers with BJ. So go watch the movie, come back, listen to it later. But this is your warning. After this, we're going full spoilers. So 3, 2, and 1. You better be gone, because the first thing I'm going to say is Ray didn't spend an entire fucking movie traveling to the Bahamas to save Julie and like be the hero just to get turned into the villain in the next movie. I understand everything you're saying about processing trauma
Mhm.
differently, and, like, that is a really interesting point to make, but to me, in my brain, again, I know it's decades ago since I know what you did last, or I still know what you did last summer, but it's so fucking funny to me that the whole movie, if I still know, is him going so far out of his way to be the hero, and then it's still just like, "Oh, yeah, no, he's the villain now."
Here's the thing, I love it. I think that I normally am not on board with this plan. I actually think that having your legacy characters turn into villains is like really cheap and like really betrays a lot of your fandom, but it being Ray, like if it was Julie, it would not work for me. But it being Ray works for me, and here's why. So one, it plays on the fact that for 2 movies, everybody thought it was Ray. So we have a little bit of a okay, you said I was a monster. Well, now I'm a fucking monster. But also, Ray is the one person who didn't leave. So Ray watched and has to stew in living in like the world where everything bad that has ever happened to him happened, and then watched as wealthy people, because he's never been wealthy. Ray has always been like the poor kid of the group, and watched as wealthy people not only whitewashed the city where all of this happened, but practically like there's like a line that's like so not real, but it's very funny, but like my dad erased everything from 1997 off the internet, the whole internet. So like he watched as like wealthy privileged people who have already made his life hell, then denied what happened to him, erased the horrible thing he went through, and got away with it, and treated him like a footnote. It's like everything that you went through means nothing. It means jack fucking shit. That would make me go insane. Like, I would actually go insane, and I would actually wanna kill all the rich people in town. So, like, the second that this started kind of teasing towards, like, "Oh, no, it couldn't have just been Ray," I was like, "Well, no shit, it's him." He's like, his bar is, like, the last vestige of, like, what Southport was, down to the Billy Blue, like, side of the boat up in the bar. It's like, he has, like, locked himself in a capsule of 1997, if only to remember what happened, because no one else has. It's like, yeah, no wonder he's fucking crazy. And like, yeah, again, irony pilled millennial line of like all this could have prevented if men went to therapy, and it's like, yeah, but that is true for the whole franchise. You got me there, kids.
Yeah, and I will say I enjoy this way of dealing. Like, okay, if you're gonna make a big swing with one of your legacy characters, this did work way better for me than the Texas Chainsaw on Netflix, where
Oh
Sally
god, yeah.
Hardesty is literally murdered and thrown in the garbage to be like, that is a different way of fuck your nostalgia that did not work for me in the
It didn't
least.
work at all for me either.
Exactly. So I will say, as much as this is a big swing that did not work for me, I think that's also because of the third act and the way it unfolds and how fucking predictable it is that he is who he
Mhm.
turns out to be. Because I think that's the biggest thing that the movie struggles with for me. There's no mystery. It's very clear who is in on this. It's very clear who the characters that we should be keeping an eye on are. And in the third act, it just unravels so strangely, in the sense that it is formulaic, although it's trying to reveal surprise after surprise with the double killer. And again, it's hard to get away from the Scream illusion. So I
Mhm.
just couldn't separate that. And that's the biggest struggle for me. Like seeing Stevie and being like, yeah, fucking course it's Stevie. I get it. Like I,
Mhm.
I just couldn't get past that. And that was my biggest like, am I going to go 3 out of 5 where it's edging positive, or am I going to go 2.5 where it edges negative? And how that ending made me feel, and just it just ends where the other films, I don't know, it had even the one where he's a fucking demon in the straight to DVD that we weren't going to mention, huge fucking swing that I was like, okay, I'm still, you're a terrible movie, but like interesting enough. I didn't get that here. There was a pit in my stomach at the end of it, just going, all right, well that was a swing and a fucking whiffer.
The thing that like I've been debating with myself about is because my only beef that I have like truly with this ending is I hate that Stevie is religious, because I hate the idea of people who get their life together and get sober, it's because of the church. That shit just drives me up the fucking wall. I think it is very cheap, but I get why it exists. But I loved the idea of Ray hearing about what happened to Stevie and immediately being like, "Yeah, I'll help you because fuck these people, because I'm about class solidarity before anything else all goddamn day." So I do love that. but part of me wishes that they would have gotten away with it. Part of me genuinely wishes that they would have actually killed these rich people, because I cannot imagine what it would be like to be Stevie, to have gotten your life together, to have reconnected with your friends, and then not only do they kill somebody and get away with it, but they kill the person that you love and get away with it, because once again, rich people face no consequences in this country. And someone like her, who is very poor, her entire life was ruined. And it's like, yeah, I'd kill them too. Like, I get you, girl. I totally get you. And I think maybe it would have hit more if they would have gotten away with it. But, and again, because we're in spoiler talk, for me, I was like very unsure about that until the mid credit scene happened. And then the entire movie and the entire tone of the movie is then recontextualized for me because, spoiler, Julie James goes over to Carla's house and they reconnect and we get Brandy, and like, hell yeah, I love Brandy all day every day. But it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. That's the true survivor thing that we're playing with. The fact that the second one really embraces like nonsense. Okay, that's why there's a lot more nonsense in this movie, because then I recognize, okay, this isn't a legacy sequel to the first movie. This is a legacy sequel to the franchise. And I will even make the argument, I think it also is including the horrible third movie, because there is this weird supernatural thing that's happening where like Danica is having dreams where she's seeing Helen Shivers, and it's like, okay, that's kind of a supernatural weird thing that's going on. The fact that Stevie's religious, well, not quite the same, but it's like, okay, that's kind of like the cult in the series, and it's like, oh, you are connecting it to everything in this franchise. It doesn't mean that it's like all super successful, but like, holy fuck, you really tried that. Like, you really tried to make everything canon. That's kind of cool.
And not only that, but Stevie's alive too. In that
Yeah.
mid-credit scene, it's dropped that Stevie lives. So one half of the duo has survived, and some we see her get shot, but we assume it's squibs because of Ray's comment. So there's just a lot going on in that end. Like that mid-credit scene is great. It does set up something that I'm like, okay, wait, where this goes from here is intriguing. But what you said prior to that about Ray and Stevie getting away with it, I think if you're gonna make the swing that you did make already, my God, that actually might have worked for me. Because as much as I love Danica, and I said before, I think that's my favorite character of the new crew. I think it's
Mhm.
played wonderfully and it worked for me in such a deep way. Her dying and representing still what you mentioned about class and all that stuff. And also, like, I do hate to say it, but like if Ava died, I Ava was a weak lead and it did not
Well,
connect.
no shade to Jennifer Love Hewitt. Julie James is a weak lead. Julie James is a
There too.
very weak final girl. And that is a bummer, which is why I like her more now. Like, I like now more than I do teen Julie, which I know is blasphemous. But it's because Helen Shivers is the best character in that movie. And so having Danica be the best character makes sense to me. Um, but at the same time, like, I get why they don't get away with it, because that is how it works. We are in America. That's how it works.
Deeper, so there you have it. I Know What You Did Last Summer, the new one, is deeper than I expected having this conversation. That's exactly what I wanted to learn from this. But no, like it's all there. It's all relevant. It's all the themes are in your face. It's just going to depend, I think, at the end of the day, of how much you can go along for the ride of the nonsense that we've
Mhm.
talked about. And I mean, between the both of us, we use the word nonsense not as derogatory, and a lot of times, like
Correct.
nonsense is a compliment, and I think that's where we're both coming from with that. But you're getting both sides of the spectrum where BJ, just this franchise is built for you a little more than me.
Mhm.
So I think that is the defining factor of where you're going to land positively or negatively. Like if you're more like me, where
Totally.
it's already not, it's not gripping you already. Like when I walked into Scream, when I walk into a new Child's Play, when I walk into all these things, it's a little more my shit versus walking into I Know What You Did Last Summer going, all right, is this going to be the second movie in the franchise that I like?
Yeah.
Little different.
When I came home from the screening, I was telling my wife Harmony about it, who we just covered the original on This Ends at Prom. And it's a movie that I revisit every 4th of July. So I was like, I can watch this movie in my sleep. And she was like, I haven't actually watched this since like high school because I remember not liking it. And then our episode is us arguing the whole time because she does not like the movie. And so then I come back and she's like, "How was it?" And I was like, "Oh, you will not like this movie." Like, because I already know she doesn't have the buy-in of the original one. So this new one certainly isn't going to work for her. Like, this movie is not going to suddenly like, "Oh, I really didn't like the original, but I like this one." It's like, either you like the original and you like this one, or you don't like either. And like, that's fine. But that's the cards you've been dealt with this one.
Yeah, the original for me, the first time I ever watched it was I'm Harmony. I am essentially Harmony in this where sure this is fine. And even on this rewatch the last time, it would have been like the third time I've seen it. There was times where I'm like, is this even a 3 star? Like, do I like any movie in this franchise? So I think that clarifies everything we were saying before of who we are in this franchise. And I think that's a perfect time to kind of say, you've heard everything we have to say about I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I genuinely hope you're more of a BJ at the end of the day, and you really do find the fun in this because there are some people that are going to have a cult like appreciation of this movie. I
Oh
think by
yeah.
the end of the day,
Oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind for sure.
I know Andrew Lassane messaged me the other day, and he was just like, "Man, I want to get Helen Shivers holding the hook on a shirt so bad." Like that is, and you know what? That's great. Like I would actually wear that shirt. My feelings on the movie aside, because that's a good shirt.
Yeah, it rocked. Like, and in our screening, I can also say too, when the mid credits hit and people like when Brandy showed up, I was like, I know which people in this crowd right away are my people, and which people are like, "Ugh, what the fuck?" Like, there are people who are just like, "What are we doing?" Or people that were like, "I don't understand why Brandy is here," and it's like, yeah, this is the line has been drawn.
The hoots and the hollers were very apparent. You are 100% correct on that.
Yeah,
That was an
yeah.
interesting screening to go through. But speaking of hoots and hollers, in the end of this episode, BJ, again, I want to thank you for coming on. And again, it is very appreciated to kind of step in here and be my co-host. It is Monocle appreciates it just as much. So I'm saying thank you for me and him.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I love coming to hang out with my mats, even if one of them is moving across the country.
Yeah, well, speaking once again of hoots and hollers, where can people hoot and holler at you on the interwebs?
You can hoot and holler at me on all forms of social media at BJ Colangelo or over at my podcast, This Ends at Prom, on all forms of social media, and patreon.com/ This Ends at Prom for additional supplemental fun stuff.
And you can find me, Matt Donato, at Donato Bomb, primarily on Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Instagram. And also, please follow our Certified Forgotten, whether that's the website or the podcast. We're on all the socials as well. If you like our website, please look into becoming a subscriber. We put all that money towards writers who have some crazier ideas that might not be pitched elsewhere, and they come to us and we give them the space to kind of work out whatever they're going through. And probably a movie he's never heard of, and that's the other fun of it. That's the fun of our podcast when we do a guest episode as well, and we have people like BJ who bring us fantastic movies ranging from The Devil's Carnival and Teenage Cocktail. So find us on the interwebs. If you like the podcast too, leave us a nice little 4 or 5 star review, or keep the rest to yourself. But on that note, we're gonna go away, and hey, maybe we might have a guest episode coming up next time, and it might be someone BJ knows as well.
Ooh.